Now, as you know, we've been told one thing over and over and over and over again for the best part of the past 10 years when it comes to electricity and prices.
The cheapest form of new energy, which is renewables.
The cheapest form of energy available.
The cheapest form of new energy is renewables.
Renewables are the cheapest form of energy.
But of course, all of that ignores the extreme cost in building a new electricity grid. The millions of solar panels, the hundreds of thousands of wind turbines, the changes to our natural environment, but all of that seems to have just been ignored. This is the cost of transition. And today, we learnt via a union superannuation-funded news site, that's the funding behind the New Daily website, they're quoting from the CSIRO, who today came up with a new poll. The new poll claimed that almost 9 in 10 Australians want a faster or more moderate transition to clean energy, that we want more renewables, let's get there faster, let's get to the cheaper form of energy. The CSIRO on Wednesday released a survey on its attitudes towards, nationwide attitudes towards the renewable energy transition. Now, contained in this report, and one of the reasons I start the show with it tonight, is because in the same way there were the misleading claims about how many Indigenous people supported the Voice going into the last referendum. Remember, the number of 80% was based off a poll that had such a small sample size, no one could suggest that that was a credible number. Yet the number was repeated over and over and over again by those who wanted a yes vote. Of course, the country saw through that, and 60-40 they voted no. But get ready for a new talking point which you are going to hear rammed down your throat between now and 2030, now and 2050. And it comes from this CSIRO polling, but again, the sample sizes are all very small, and there's a big asterisk on this next claim. But get ready for this talking point, because it's the first time you're going to hear it. More than 80% of Australians say they would tolerate living within 10 kilometres of renewable energy infrastructure. Now, all of this is, of course, a direct pushback against the protests which we have seen from country towns like Mudgee in New South Wales, all the way up to the tippy tops of Queensland, to the very base of Victoria, to even Bob Brown fighting against wind farms in Tasmania because of the birds that they will kill. Yet this talking point that now 80% of Australians, the extreme majority, would be fine to live near the new renewable energy infrastructure, of course, is based off the idea and the likelihood and the expectation that the extreme majority of Australia's population will not be living within 10 kilometres of any of these projects. Because unless they're planning to put renewable energy projects in the local dog park, unless there's a plan to change the local netball court, unless North and South Head of Sydney Harbour are about to change, unless some national parkland is going to be taken up in the suburbs of Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane, the reality is that you are not going to be living anywhere near a wind farm or a solar farm if you live in suburban Australia, let alone built up or teal Australia. But this talking point is going to be rammed down your throat. That every time you see a protest, the response will be, well, no, 8 out of 10 people completely disagree with those people. But the reality is that not 8 out of 10 people are looking down the barrel of a wind farm here and a wind farm there and a wind farm and over here and over there and a solar farm back there, something changing the landscape, let alone the insurability. There were stories this week about farmers who are unable to get fire insurance because they live near a wind turbine. Now again, I have never on this program pretended that there is not a problem that needs to be dealt with by having 8 billion people on the planet and the inevitable consequences to the planet. But I've also been absolutely proportionate that Australia is 1% of the world's problem. Yet the huge changes that are planned to regional areas in part because they don't vote Labor, so a Labor government doesn't care how annoyed they get. The only time there seems to be a review or a change is if you are within 10 kilometres of a Labor seat. If not, then you're being told, suck it up, this is the future, shut up. But again, would they have that attitude to the people who live in Marrickville, who have just as much right to maintain their suburb as the people of Mudgee do? Of course not. There would be no such attempt to force a change to Centennial Park in Sydney. No such attempt to change the parklands of Melbourne. Instead, there is a real city-country divide. But on top of all of that, the one thing that I have demanded that people who demand the change are honest about is the cost of transition. Now, the very same organisation that is trying to tell us there's an opinion poll that 8 out of 10 people are okay to live within 10 k's of something that will never be built near where they actually live in suburban or built-up capital cities, as a talking point to push back against the regional areas where huge numbers of people do not want to see this stuff change on their lands, is that we have to talk about the cost of moving from one electricity grid that has served us to the new one that they hope will service us into a future with more people and a future with more things dragging on the supply of electricity. Everything from how we cook our food to how we charge our car, let alone the huge amount of new homes that would be required as well, as big Australia takes us towards the best part of 40 million people. Now, the true cost in 2018 from the CSIRO was $1 trillion. Green energy groups say that it could be more than $1 trillion. Now, at some point in time, someone somewhere has had to be honest and to say that it is not a costless change. As I have argued from the day this discussion started, you will either pay for it via government, and we know that Chris Bowen has got the best part of $60 billion to try to prop up some of these projects, and that's just the start, but it's all off budget, meaning we don't get to see what the cost of it is. By their own admission, the government says we need to rewire the nation, but of course they say that can only be done for a bare few $1 million, when the reality is that it is, well, hundreds of billions of dollars because of the way the power lines work, about power lines just moving power in one direction as opposed to going back and forth between the local battery storage or the multiple other ways to get to the central hubs. Let's not bore everyone with how the electricity grid works. Or it was to be paid for by you, the customer, as companies slowly but surely are forced by government, by politics, by the market to move out of the energy systems that we have had in the country for the ones that people believe we should have in the country. All I have ever asked is that if you told people up front, we're going to make a change, it's going to cost $1 trillion, but we think for the good of the planet this is what should be done. Instead, you were lied to. Instead, we had a Prime Minister who told you that the cost of power was going to go down. In fact, remember the promise that he made over and over again as he started the supercharging of this process, where the true cost of transition was going to cost billions, but he claimed it would save you hundreds.
Households will benefit by $275 on average.
Reducing power prices by $275. Prices by $275. $275. $275 a year. $275. $275 a year.
It's one of the greatest lies that have ever been told in Australian politics. And it was all about lipstick on the pig, because the pig was the billions of dollars. The lipstick was, oh, but you're going to get 275 by 2025. Now, remember, it's not based off the record highs, minus 275. We can show you the tape. We've got it. Don't worry, I'll be ramming that down people's throats. We've got the tape that shows it was from the day they came to power, minus 275.